Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Tech Guys Who Invest podcast, where each week we teach you how to invest wisely and safely. Today's episode, we have Adam AAA Adams to talk about real estate investing. So, welcome, Adam AAA Adams.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on the show, Adam. And for our first question, we'd like you to talk a little bit about your journey out of the rat race, because I understand that you had a full-time job at once and now you don't. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
For sure. My family is real estate investors and entrepreneurs. So I kind of came from that type of background. First time I collected rent, I think I was 9 years old. And my dad bought the book Rich Dad Poor Dad and the game Cash Flow right when they came out. So Cash Flow in 1996, he never got me to play it for years. And then he bought Rich Dad Poor Dad in 1997. And I was dyslexic. And so every time he asked me to read it, it just sounded like the worst thing I could ever do. So being involved was something that was kind of in my blood, but I rejected it for a little while. It wasn't until 2007 that I started doing real estate, but it was because my dad purchased a piece of property and then had me buy it from him. And so that was my first little deal. When I sold it, I made a little bit more than I had made in any single year until 2007. And so I thought it was pretty cool. And so I finally read that book. And the two main things that I said I needed to do was have my own business and to invest. And I wanted to invest in apartments like Robert. And just fast forward that until going through a crash in 2008 with an apartment community and lots of other things. It wasn't until 2016 that I officially quit my job. So in 2015, we doubled our money a couple of times doing tax deed acquisitions. And then we did that one more time. And my boss got on my nerves, so I fired her. And so that was it. It was 2016 where I've never looked back. I purchased a whole bunch of properties that year and kept refinancing them out. Started doing syndication we started working to do syndication in 17 and we closed our first one in, I believe, in the beginning of 2018. So it took a little while, but that just means I'm part of or partnered in a little over 1,000 apartment units, and each one, cash flows. And so that's really benefited me to truly get out of the rat race. Whereas a couple of years ago was the first time where my passive income officially took care of all of my expenses, which I don't know why, because I don't have fancy cars or diamond rings, but there's a lot of expenses, that we have. So I was really grateful to be able to say that a couple years ago.
Congratulations on that, being able to fire your boss and having your passive income kind of pay for everything that your current life has. I wanted to follow up on something that you had mentioned about your background with you were saying that you come from that family background of real estate investors, and you were originally kind of hesitant to follow that path as well. Can you help us understand where you were coming from with that? Because I feel that some of our listeners would almost kill to have that knowledge kind of from the get-go. So I'm just curious.
Well, I think half of the people listening to this show absolutely know what it feels like to just want to do anything opposite than their parents tell them to do. You see that with, the preacher's daughter. You see that all the way down to any type of, attorney. And the kids are like, yeah. But I don't want to just follow in your footsteps. When we follow in our footsteps, it makes us feel like we're not laying our own path. And when we don't lay our own path, we don't feel like we're in control. And most of us who are teenagers, it's really important to us to distinguish ourselves from others, especially our parents. And it was the same for me. And so, as my dad was saying that this was the smart way to do it and that I needed to start right away, if I would start when I was the age that I was when he was telling me that I'd be a multimillionaire within, before I graduated high school or whatever. And so I just wanted to say to my dad, I'll do it eventually. Like, I'll probably do that because it does seem smart. But the only thing that held me back was wanting to do my own path. So I, you know, was going to be the first person in my family who became a teacher, and I was studying music for music ed. And to me, that felt like that was my thing, and I didn't just copy it from my parents, and that's really all it was.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think you're right. A lot of people probably can relate to that. So, Adam, you are pretty well connected in the real estate community. And I was wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Surrounding yourself with the right people has been something that I've always felt was incredibly important. I remember specifically in 2015, after doing a couple of tax deeds, I remember thinking to myself that if I was going to jump in and do um, apartments, then I needed to be around the people that were doing that. So for my path, the few things that I did is I hired a coach and a mentor, and I joined a couple of groups, and I started hosting my own groups. And what that did is help me to be able to see the same people pretty frequently at my meetup or at other conferences or whatever it was that I went to. And just to take it a step further, I believe in growing your network so much that it's the only reason why I started a podcast. I remember starting a podcast that with where the top reason was that I need to be able to connect with others that are in this space. I guess the second reason was just to add as much value as I could and be able to kind of leave a legacy on this world when I left it. The third reason was to be able to get more passive investors for my own investments that I was doing. Um, but the hidden reason that I never realized is how incredibly powerful it ended up being when I was leading like a meetup or my podcast, when I could have, Kathy Fedke flew in for my meetup. Joe Fairless flew in for my meetup. I've had just so many insanely famous people, Brad Sumrock, Rod Cleef, and we can keep just going on and on. They've all come and them, and we start being more likely to do business together. I even remember when I wanted to try something that we had never tried with our passive investors and how they got paid. Um, I won't go into the details right this second, but it's basically return of capital versus return on capital. And we had never done the first one, and I knew that Joe had done it, and so it was just such a huge blessing to be able to call him on his cell phone, have him answer, say my name, Adam, what's going on? Hey, man, good to hear from you. What's happening? And for me to just pick his brain without having to pay a certain amount or without having to schedule an appointment, he just answered the phone, and he told me what he could, and then put us in touch with his accountant. And that's the type of just extremely powerful thing that happen when we put ourselves out there and start growing our network.
That's a great story and a lot of good points there for people who want to start networking and are a little bit shyer. They're more introverted. What advice did you have for to helping them break out of their shell?
Um, if they want to start a meetup and they're introverted,
Or just
Yeah.
networking tips for people that might be hesitant to do it. And I mean, right now with COVID, we're kind of in a weird spot with that, but just in general, let's say things get back to normal, what would you say to those people?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have two different points that that they're kind of unrelated, but they both answer the question. The first one is when, and I've kind of been in the limelight for a few years, and I'm also I am a shy person. Nobody ever believes me, just because I've had this podcast for so long, and it's starting to feel like it comes more naturally. However, even to this day, if I go somewhere where there's 4, 5, 6, 10 people that I don't know, and they kind of know each other, I feel like I'm out of my element even now. So that happens to me, and I totally understand that feeling. So the first thing that I would say is when you are hosting your own meetup or your podcast, or you're going to go speak at a conference or speak at somebody else's meetup, or actually just be interviewed on someone's podcast, the one thing that I would say really makes a huge difference is for you to stop thinking about you. That's the big thing. When we think about just the listener or the co-hosts, though, and we just spend the time and really don't care if we make mistakes. I've said just on this podcast alone. And in general, if I really cared about how I came across or how I sounded, then that feeling would really hold me back, and I'd probably sound even worse. But when we think about the value that we can give to the co-host or the listener, and try to forget about ourselves for a moment, that one thing is what allows us to be able to add the most amount of value and impress the most amount of people, is coming from a place of authenticity. The second thing that I would share when it comes to being able to um, get, if you're introverted and you want to be either going to meetups or hosting a meetup, something that seems to really benefit a lot of people, but most especially those who are introverted, is this one cool hack that you can do if you're running the show. And that is to allow everybody to introduce themselves when they come to the meetup. And here's the reason why. Imagine if you had somebody who was completely comfortable and confident, not shy by any means, and you put them in a room. Are they going to have a problem telling who they want to tell what it is that they do for a living and who they help? Absolutely not. They
Yep.
wouldn't have any issue doing that. However, the person who was a little bit more reserved, they you would think that putting them on the spot was a bad thing, but in general, it's an extremely good thing for that shy or introverted person to give them 10, 20, or 30 seconds to just say hi to the group and let them know how they can help them. And when they get that opportunity, they really appreciate it. And they look around the room and they know that they've said their piece. And they know that if somebody wants to talk to them about that thing, that person might come up to them. And, or if they heard somebody else introduce themselves that they knew they wanted, then they don't have to worry about doing all this small talk that they likely hate. And they can go straight up to the one person who can help move their business forward. So if you're shy, introverted, and you want to host your own, make sure you do that, because you're going to be able to help yourself and many, many others. And if you're shy and introverted and you're not ready to start your own, it can really be beneficial if you're able to find a group that allows people to introduce themselves, because then you're going to be able to feel like you've gotten heard, and that networking is going to be a lot easier for you.
Great tips. I've heard you talk, Adam, about using meetups to increase your network. And I know that you've done that and you've got some little tricks to do that. If you were to kind of talk to somebody about how they might use meetups strategically, what would you say?
Well, really good question. Number one, I want to talk about the avatar. that most people completely miss. And so I think it's really important that we mention it, because when you ask, Adam, when you ask how to strategically use Meetup, if you miss that one piece, then you're going to fail. Absolutely, without fail. You're going to fail without fail. And the next one that I would actually, let's just go ahead and start with the avatar, and then I can move into another thing that can help you to be able to be better at growing your network. But when we look at that avatar, it's not a blue person. It's not an emoji that looks like you. It's all an avatar is that's your perfect ideal client. That's the person that you're going to resonate the most with. It's going to be really easy for you to add value to them, and you're going to enjoy them. It's not going to be that one person who grew up hating going to the doctor. That's me. I had to go to the doctor this weekend because I got a little injury, and they asked me some questions about when the last time I went to the doctor and if I had my tetanus, and I was like, I have no idea. I don't. It's been too long. I avoid you with all cost, And the reason that I bring up that is because for me, a doctor is not my avatar. I have plenty of doctors that have found me and that want to passively invest, and it works out. However, I don't naturally just resonate with a doctor. I'm not incredibly fascinated with blood or needles or whatever. I'm not fascinated with it. I prefer to stay away from the doctors as much as I can. So even though we have a few doctors that invest with us, I don't seek them out, and it's not a very natural conversation for me to have. But for people that are in real estate, it's a really easy conversation because it's something that I've been doing since 2005. And same thing with engineers. I'm extremely fascinated by what they do, how they do it, how they think, and I could sit there and ask question after question. So my avatar is, an engineer. And with what I would say that really is this part that makes people fail so much is they think that they want passive investors, or they think that they want whatever it is. And so they go and start some podcast, or they start a meetup. But the meetup or the podcast literally attracts people like they are. It doesn't attract their avatar. So they start a podcast that, let's just call it multifamily 101. Let's just call it multifamily 101. Well, you're most likely to have people that want to watch this multifamily 101 because they want to learn how to do. They don't want to learn how to passively invest. And so that's where a lot of people miss the mark with their meetups and their podcasts, is that they're in the very beginning, they're already attracting the wrong person. And so for your listener, if they want to start a meetup or a podcast and get the most amount of value, they need to first understand deeply who that person is. And then they need to reverse engineer everything to be able to add the most amount of value to that person, not other operators.
That's really good.
And I think, I mean, I could give you more, but I already forgot that second one. So if you want to ask a question again, I'm sure I could get it again, or we can go to the next question.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I mean, I think that allows you to really focus on who it is you're trying to serve, and just being crystal clear about that is super. The second part of it was just around like how to use them to increase your network, and how to make sure you've got a lot of folks showing up and attending the thing.
Well, good. If you follow the few things I'm about to share, I think that you're going to be able to have a meetup that adds a lot of value to other people. The meetup grows itself organically, and you also will have things that you do to help it grow. and you're going to be able to meet those people to be able to have that network. And so here's a few things that can really help you to be able to do that. The first one that I want to share is how you market and advertise your meetup. Now, here is just one simple explanation of something that you can do for that. And it is to have the polar opposite of what you hear. Other meetups, they advertise, we meet monthly. We meet every single month. Oh, are you going to come to the November event? How does a November event make you excited? What am I going to learn? How does a monthly event make you absolutely not be able to miss it? Because I swear to you, from a lot of years of experience in this, that people, they have jobs, they have spouses, they have children, they have deadlines, they have their hobby, they get tired because they didn't sleep well the night before. And all of a sudden, they go and see that they get this notification that you have a meetup tonight. And they're like, I'm just going to un-RSVP. I've got too much going on with my kids, and it's just a November event. I'll just wait to the December event. I'm not missing anything. So when it comes to advertising, you need to share with your avatar exactly why they must come to this event. And the big secret is every event is special.
Nice.
So
okay. That's
you,
good.
You do that with, I'll go a little bit deeper on that, because this would give a real tangible takeaway for the listener. And what that tangible takeaway will be is to think about, if I had something where I wanted to teach real estate, and that was my meetup was about real estate. And I had one meetup where I thought, I do apartments, but I want to get more people into my world. And so I can do that this time by choosing this subject, wholesaling, or maybe virtual wholesaling, because it seems to me to be a really fancy or popular topic today. And so I'll create an event where I might get 2 or 3 wholesalers, and I will try to select wholesalers that have meetups or have followings already in that market. And so I might want to have 3 or 4, not 2, and never more than 4. But you'll either select 3 or 4 panelists. And it's easy to do a panel, because with the panels, it's all going to be Q&A, and they don't have to have a presentation. And because I'm trying to get people that already have a following, the next thing that I can do is I can give them all this same pitch. And so I'll go to the first one, and I'm going to use you, Adam, as my example. Adam, I was thinking that I want to get you in front of my group. And what might be cool is I could have like Kevin and you and this other guy who are top wholesalers in the market, and I'll just host it. I don't need to be on stage or whatever. I'll just host it, and I'll put you on stage next to these other 2 big ballers, and I'm going to go ahead and ask them to invite their people. So it's going to be massive. It's going to be all of my followers, all of yours, and also Kevin's and Jamie's. And so now that all 4 of us are putting our stuff, I think this is going to be the biggest wholesaling event that Denver's ever seen. Do you want to be a part of it? Okay, then here's some copy.
Absolutely.
Here's some copy that I'll give you. So when you post this on your meetup, just use this copy. I've already pre-written it. If there's something you want to change, no big deal. Go ahead and change it. But I want to make sure you get it posted today. Do you think you can post it today, or are you too busy?
Oh yeah, I can absolutely do that.
All right, then I'm going to call Kevin. Do the same thing. I want to feature you. I want to put you in front of my group. And I thought it'd be really cool. I'm calling Jamie and Adam, and they are also ballers. And I just go through the whole thing until all four of us are there. And this is a massive plan. Okay, this is like, Pinky, what do you want to do today? I want to take over the world. Okay, this is that type of plan. So now I get all three of these people. Then we have the event itself. And as I'm marketing the event, I'm saying, you cannot miss this. You will never be able to see these three in the same room again, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever wanted a wholesale, this is the place to go. And then I would call a whole bunch of fix and flippers. I would call them one-on-one and I would say, hey man, I've got a wholesaling event coming up next Thursday. And I know you don't want to learn how to wholesale, but the thing is, my speakers are three of the top wholesalers in the state. And everyone who's coming is coming to learn and grow and be better at wholesaling. So I was thinking that based on you needing more deals, you told me last week, or every other person says it's hard to find deals. I think you need to come here and hand your business card out to some of these people. And all of a sudden I got all the fix and flippers are like, I'm definitely going to be there. And now I'm going to go and call all the real estate agents. And I'm going to say, hey, I called these hand-picked fix and flippers today. And all of them said that they're coming to this event. I just wanted to let you in on it, let you know about it. It's going to be all about wholesaling. I don't know if you personally want to start and try to get into real estate investing, or if you like being an agent. But if you like being an agent, a whole bunch of people that you could give your business card out are going to be there. Let me tell you who they are. It's Adam, it's Kevin, it's Jamie, it's this other person, it's this other person. Do you have the ability to come? And then they let me know. And so now all of a sudden I've got so many people coming. And here's the second smart thing to do. While you're at the event, you already need to know what you're doing next week or next month. So remember that secret when I called Adam and then I called Kevin and I told both of them, I don't even need to be on stage. I'll just host it. I want to feature you. Well, here's how that ties in later on. Now, all of a sudden, Adam's people, Jamie's people, Kevin's people, they're all there at the meetup. And then all I need to say is, I wanted to let you all know about an amazing event that I have coming out next week. It could be about multifamily, or it could be about anything you want. And for me, I might do multifamily. I might say something to the effect of, if you know how to find deals and you found a multifamily apartment community, because it's difficult to do, instead of you making $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, you're probably going to be making $100,000 or $30,000 on the low end just for finding a deal. So if you're really good at finding deals and really good at wholesaling, maybe you want to come next week and I can show you how to take those skills and put them into apartment communities. And then I might also say, and I know a lot of you here are fix and flippers and you got that active income and you're doing really well. There's two ways you might be involved in an apartment community that you might want to hear of. I'll share them with you right now. And again, this is next week that we're doing this unique event. Number one, if you're fix and flipping and you're making all that active income, why don't you start putting a little bit of it to something passive? And I'm not talking like a rental where you buy the rental and you have to manage the rental and you feel like you have another job on top of flipping. I'm talking just investing passively into something like an apartment community. And I'll teach you how to do that on the next at the next event. Also, if you're really, really good at flipping these and you want to be active, you're like, I don't care about being passive. All I want to do is be active. Well, I want to show you how you could be active, not on one unit at a time and make a $30,000, maybe $100,000 if you're lucky spread, but how you could do that on a larger apartment community and maybe bring in a couple $100,000 or a couple million just on one apartment reposition. So if you are a wholesaler, you got to come. If you are a fix and flipper, you got to come. And for you agents who need to be able to put some of this active money, I know two of you in this room that have done business with each other, and you guys have already made 300 grand this year so far. How are you going to spend that? You need to start investing that. Come to this event, right? Something like that. Just to give you an example.
Love it. That is
Nice.
huge.
Tons of
If you're
stuff in there.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, that's going to be huge for just kind of understanding not only how to bring people together, but what to say. Adam just gave the pitch. This is what you
Yeah.
need to say. That's the inherent value, is to bring all those people together. And when you're bringing like-minded people together, there's going to be people wanting to add value to each other. So that was gold right there. So one thing that I wanted to ask you is, when it comes to defining your avatar, I think you may have touched on it earlier. For people who are on the active side trying to figure out who their avatar is, what would you say to help them figure that out?
Awesome. For me, my avatar is going to be someone that I like personally, and they like me personally. So oftentimes, if we're somebody who has tattoos, we resonate with others that have tattoos. In fact, it's psychologically proven that those with tattoos trust others with tattoos more than they trust people without tattoos. And same thing for people who cuss. They trust cussers faster. And the same thing with Christians. If all of a sudden you find out that someone else is Christian, you trust them as well. So the point that I'm trying to make is that the biggest part of attracting your avatar is being yourself. If you love wine from Burgundy, this little region in France, and more especially you like it from the Côte de Beaune or the Côte de Nuit, and more especially you like it from that little little vineyard, Pomar, and this is like your favorite thing, and you geek out about this wine. If all you do is talk about wine more, the passive investors who love wine are just simply going to resonate with you. For me, I talk about CrossFit. And CrossFit's not inexpensive. Neither is mountain biking. I talk about mountain biking a lot. My mountain bike is insanely costly, and just the getting a rack put on for my bike was expensive. And to be able to put that much time and attention, you got to be doing things right. And what I found out is that it's really easy to connect with your perfect avatar when you are just being yourself. You're talking about food because you love food. You're talking about politics because you like politics. You're going to offend. You can easily polarize your audience depending on what that is. But if you're being your true self, then you will attract others that are like you. So that's the first most important part of making sure that you're going to add value to your perfect avatar, and how to find your avatar. Other things to think about is going to be people that you like talking with, people that you're interested. For you, I think your perfect avatar is probably in the technology space, and you're adding value to the other people in the technology space and teaching them how to also invest. And so every time you have a an episode, you're going to want to make sure that you're adding value to the passive investor, that tech person. And one trick is to communicate with them frequently. And it sounds crazy, but for a podcast like this, you will frequently say things like, I bet you might be in the technology space. You probably are around 40 years old, and you're probably making close to 6 figures or more. And these are the things that you're struggling with. You'll be speaking to your avatar just like I am now. And these are the things you're struggling with. You're worried about this. You're worried about how are you going to know who to put that money with? You're worried about if you put that money, how are you going to know if it gets back? You're worried about how fast does it come? What if something happens? So I've got a webinar, and I thought I would just do this webinar for you, the listener, who's going through those things. And I'm on this webinar. I want to share with you how to overcome those five things to be able to actually put your first 25, 50, or 100,000 into a deal like this so that you can eventually get out of the rat race. And so like when we're talking like that, that person feels us because we're speaking directly to them about what they're going through. And so if your listener can figure out who they understand right now to that level, I think that's the first person that they can start to try to add value to be able to have them come into their deals.
Yeah,
And
great.
I will share one other thing because it's incredibly relevant to your listener. There's a guy in my mastermind. He just spoke at the Raising Money Summit. His name is Cazzini, last name Cazzini, but Marcelo. I have Mauricio. I have four names, and I'm dyslexic, and they're Mauricio, Marcelo, Merrill, and one other. But anyway, the point is Marcelo. Um, he was shy. He was introvert. Well, he is shy. He is introverted. He does do technology, and he's in my group, and he didn't know how to bring up anything to the people at his office. And who knows if your listener will for sure be starting a podcast or a meetup or not. So I wanted to just share this thing that Marcelo learned, and then he tried, and it worked really well for him on being able to add value to his avatar. And we rehearsed a question. We rehearsed it a few times. We practiced it to make sure voice inflections were perfect. But all in all, this is what we did. He would go up to one of the people that work with him, and he would just say, "Hey, I have a question. And I know it might feel a little awkward, but I'm just trying to figure out better ways to, invest my money, where to put it. And I know that, you make over six figures. We all do here. I just wanted to find out, what do you do with all your extra money? What are you investing in? Maybe I could learn a couple of new cool things. I'm just doing multifamily right now and just doing it passively with other people. And I didn't know if you had something that I needed to look at." And you just start like that. All of a sudden they're like, "Wait, you're passive multifamily. What do you mean?" "Oh, it's just like this." And you just give them a quick answer. And then you get into asking them more about what they're investing in. So what are you putting yours in right now? Is it just the stock market? Are you trying other things? I wasn't sure if I should do Bitcoin or maybe a little in Bitcoin. What do you suggest? And then just see. And once you get those answers, then you can just say, "Well, next time I see an apartment deal, I can always let you know, or whatever." That's just a great way in the technology space to just start that conversation. And it needs to be rehearsed because it can't be too quick. What I mean is, like, if you just like said some of those things that I just said, but like without practicing it lots of times, it would literally sound like a sales pitch. It would sound
Right.
like you are asking the question to set somebody up. And so if you want to practice it, I would rewind the podcast and play it back a bunch of times and try to notice how I pause, how I hold back, how I breeze through some of the stuff like it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just like having a conversation. So,
I love that. And that, that authenticity shines through when you really are interested in what they are interested in because you have a commonality. You're not faking that. And then I really like that curiosity component where you're just trying to find out what they're interested in and, maybe help them. They can help you. So that's pretty cool. Adam, I know you have a popular podcast. In fact, I think you've mentioned it on this show. Can you tell us a little about the podcast?
Absolutely. So, as far as the podcast, I'm launching two podcasts right now. One of them is called the Apartment Investing Show. It'll easily be out before the episode is live, anyways. Apartment Investing Show is literally just about buying apartment communities. And the other show that I'm launching is a show about podcasting. And so I'm literally just teaching people how to podcast. And remember that we have to start podcasts that attract our avatar. That's the most critical thing. And I didn't do that in the beginning. When I started the Creative Real Estate Podcast, which I've recently sold, I was able to sell that podcast. I had 3 offers that were over 50,000, and I went ahead and I took one of the offers and sold the podcast.
Nice.
And the main reason is because I was doing 2 things. I was helping people launch podcasts so that they could attract more capital for their deals. I was helping them find their avatar. I was helping them do this. And those people weren't being found at the Creative Real Estate Podcast. They might have heard of me and then went to the show, but they weren't scrolling through and the words creative real estate answered their question, how to raise money,
Right.
millions of dollars, or how to start a podcast. And so I went ahead and I sold that one. I'm starting an apartment investing show, the Apartment Investing Show, and then a podcast about podcasting. And the podcast about podcasting it goes directly to my avatar. It literally just adds value to other podcasters. And so I'm sponsoring podcast conferences. And when I'm sponsoring those conferences, I'm connecting with other podcasters. And then I'm inviting them to be on the show and them to add value to other podcasters to be better. And then I do some of my own like individual things. So to answer your question, I messed up. It wasn't until I started helping other people launch podcasts that I started realizing how important that is to attract the right person. And then I decided to end my podcast or sell it. And I'm starting 2 others that are more, especially that add value to the exact person that I want to work with. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you covered a lot, especially when it comes to from the marketing aspect, especially the avatar, right? Knowing who you want to target is going to be absolutely huge. We wouldn't be the tech guys who invest if we didn't ask about tech. However, we're going to switch it up a little bit differently. You mentioned you're in Denver. You talked about being outdoors. What would you say is a piece of technology that really makes the great outdoors fun for you? Could be a mountain bike, could be a GPS phone.
Yeah, GPS. I mean, I literally have about 20 watches. And yes, one of them is a fake Rolex, and you couldn't tell, but but I'll tell you, one of them is a fake Rolex, and that I think I paid like 20 or 30 bucks for, but you can't tell because it sweeps perfectly. And then just a bunch of other watches, mostly silver and brown leather. And I've been collecting these just with bigger faces and all this kind of stuff. But I don't like to be a fancy type person. Like if for the listener, I'm just wearing a polo. I'm just like wearing a 3-button up. I'm not wearing a suit. I've got my Cabo hat on that I got last time I went to Cabo, and I'm not like a fancy person. And honestly, most of the time that I wear watches, it feels like I'm trying to be flashy. Just to me, it makes it feel that way. So I've got like 20 watches, but I don't wear them. I haven't worn them for years. And so the technology that you're asking is I went for over a year to decide if I should get an Apple Watch or not. Over a year, because I'm like, I don't wear watches, and you can even see my tan line, Anyway, I never have worn a watch, but I was like, if I'm going to spend, I don't know, I don't remember how much they are, but they were expensive. If I'm going to spend that much, I want to actually wear it. And it was always hard to go on a run when you're holding, like my iPhone is giant, and so it's kind of heavy. It won't go in the pocket, and I can't just hold it. And so I thought I'm just going to get one of these, and it took me a year. Finally got it, and I'm so grateful that I can get my heart rate, I can get my GPS, I can just turn it on. I don't have to bring a phone. If I get a phone call, I can still get it to the phone. It's just, or to the watch. It's a pretty freaking cool piece of technology. I love it.
Nice. Yeah, it's awesome. If you had told someone all of the things that smartwatch can do 10 years ago, they would never believe you. So it is quite an amazing piece of technology. Adam, this has been great. I think you've added so much value to our listeners, and we're really grateful that you came on our show and appreciate your time. Can you tell our listeners where to find you and where they can find out a little more about you?
Of course, if they want a little bit of help with a meetup, they can just go to with a podcast, they can go to my podcast dot website. So instead of .com, it's .website, but my podcast .website, and they can see how I do three things. I manage and edit your podcasts. I can market them, or I can help you launch your first one. So that's probably the best way for them to get a hold of me.
Okay, great. And we'll put that in the show notes so people can find it easily.
Cool.
Adam, thanks so much for coming on. It's really been great having you.
My pleasure. Thank you.